This summer, try the new Strato Frappuccino blended beverage at Starbucks. It's the classic blended iced coffee you know and love, now topped with a creamy layer of handcrafted brown sugar cold foam. Available for a limited time. Your Strato Frappuccino is ready at Starbucks.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Shh. Hear that? Big waves are calling. Dive into refreshment with Kona Big Wave. Tropical flavor and the taste of aloha in every drop. So crack one open and let the great taste roll in. Kona Big Wave, Liquid Aloha. Copyright 2025 Kona Brewing Co., St. Louis, Missouri. Mahalo for enjoying responsibly.
The Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University helps you go from, I know the way, to I've arrived with our top 10 ranked online MBA. Gain skills you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Get ready to go from make it happen to made it happen. And keep striving. Visit strayer.edu/Jack Welch MBA to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero here on the Tour Coach Podcast, where we bring you the best mental coaches, fitness experts, teachers, players, everything from my journey in the game of golf to help you learn to play better golf, teach better golf, and enjoy the game. Come on in. We're going to have some fun. All right. Joining me here on the Tour Coach, certainly one of the smartest people I get to hang out with, but saying that around me doesn't mean much. But anyways, one of my good friends and somebody that's been just such a huge resource as well as a friend for me over my coaching career, Dr. Scott Lynn. Doc, what the heck are you up to? Good to have you on, bud.
Been busy, been real busy. We've actually gotten a lot into baseball recently. So I've been working in golf a ton, been consulting with a couple baseball teams, and it's good. I took what I learned from golf to baseball, and then I've learned a ton in baseball to bring back to golf, which I think has kind of made me better at both. So both of them, you're trying to create speed with a stick in your hand. So it's been very useful and very interesting, but it's really spread me out a little bit more with baseball and golf now going big. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about, regular golfers, but, I think I learned a ton from some of the best in the world that you can then apply to the regular golfers as well. So I work with both. I know you work with both. I mean, sometimes it's more fun, right? To make a regular guy better. He goes from shooting 100 to 80 is a little more fulfilling than taking a guy from 68 to 67.3 or whatever.
Right, exactly. And I get asked all the time, like about teaching regular. I love it still, right? And you and I, we spent a bunch of time. Like, I think variety is the spice of life. If we did the same thing, but also like to me, and we've taught so much together, it's the same stuff. Like we're trying. I don't teach a tour player anything different than I would teach. Than you and I would have a 15 handicapper. Now the 15 handicapper might not be able to do it as well or as fast or as big, but we're trying to get them to do the same things.
Totally. And that's where I think a lot of people assume the biomechanics stuff, like the force plates and, all that stuff. They think, oh, that's just for the good player. Like that doesn't apply to me. And I'm like, I think it honestly is more useful for regular guys sometimes. Like we can find some stuff really quickly with regular players that can really help their games, which, they might be searching forever for it. And because, a tour player will put in 2 straight weeks on the range searching for it and trying to get it where, a regular guy maybe hits balls on the range once a week. And so it could take them months and months and months to find something with their schedule. Whereas if they go in and look at it on the force plates, and I've been found with my own game, like I have a 2-year-old son now. I've played, I think 4 rounds of golf, like in the last year and a half or so. Like I hardly play golf anymore, but I have access to the force plates and to a launch monitor, and I hit, 10 balls probably 3 times a week when I'm in the lab, and I can find my little things that I do incorrectly very quickly, fix them, hit 5 more. And I'm like, hey, I got it. I'm good.
I'm good.
And my ball striking doesn't, like when I do play my, 1 round every couple of months, A ball strike is pretty good. Short game is another story, but
well, yeah, because you don't get the reps on that.
no, those are hard to get reps on indoors. But ball striking is pretty solid. I mean, so I think that's where the technology can be very useful. Is having less time trying to find it, right? Because it can direct your arrow very quickly to figure out what's wrong or what's been not working in your swing.
So let's keeping it with the recreational golfer. Let's come up with 5 to 10 things that, from your experience with all that you've done with biomechanics, swing catalysts, being around teachers like myself, that the recreational golfer can do. Like you said, there are things that can be done. I always tell folks that are easy, whether they're set up or something small that you can do that will make you hit it better or swing faster without overhauling your golf swing, right? Like, I think there's this misnomer that to get better, you got to go change everything you do. And that's one thing I know from the work with you and Colby. And like, we've had some great times, the three of us in a bay together where everybody does a little thing, but like, it's a little thing that really unlocks a lot of improved performance. So what would be the first thing? Where would you go?
I say, like, when I have a golfer that's, I first look at on a force plate when I'm working with them is balance at setup. How balanced are they at setup? Because that can get off really quickly. And what I find is generally not so good players hit enough bad shots that they get kind of scared. And as you get scared, they kind of draw in, which generally moves the pressure back towards their heels more. And I always tell the golfers that are having this, like, so I'll show them the pressure plate at setup, and when all the pressure's in their heels, I'm like, you'll watch, baseball on TV or whatever, right? And a pitcher's got a guy on second, and he walks somebody, and they're like, oh, they got him on their heels right now. What does that mean? They're in trouble, right?
Right.
So if you're watching any other sport and the announcer's like, oh, they got them on their heels right now, it means that person's in trouble. And so I'm like, you're set up in a way that you're in trouble before the club's even moved. There aren't too many athletic things we do from our heels.
No.
Really?
No.
I can't think of one that is, an athletic feat that we do from our heels. So, and what I find is biomechanics is a lot of game of opposites. So if you start in your heels with the pressure in your heels, you can't go to your heels anymore. You're going to fall over. So you dive towards the golf ball as you start moving. And I think if you set up unbalanced, during the swing, your brain is trying to find balance, not trying to hit a golf ball. That's secondary. Because, like, really, what's the first job of your brain is to keep you upright and not fall over and hurt yourself. And so if I start in my heels and I got to swing this thing, my brain tries to find balance. And most of the time, it'll send you towards your toes to find that balance. And that's when El Shenko becomes, the hosel gets closer to the ball. And people, I would say, probably 9 times out of 10, when somebody comes to me and says, yeah, I shank it quite often, like, I'll have 2 or 3 hosel rockets around, they're starting in their heels. And that's what creates the shank motion. And so I like to use the pressure plates as like a biofeedback tool where they kind of rock toes to heels and figure out how to kind of find that middle ground. And when they do find that middle ground, sometimes they feel like they're tipping way over because their brain is calibrated around being on their heels. But to me, just getting balanced at setup is one of the most important things you can do as a, and even for myself as a, I find often I get in my heels a little bit too much too. But it's an easy fix. I see it on the force plate. I'm like, oh, I can fix that. No problem. And then, the next couple strikes are way better than they were before.
I love where you started with that, because I was kind of curious in my brain what you were going to go. And I was thinking myself, posture and balance, right?
Yeah.
Because early on, I remember way back in the Bay Point days and the Frederica days, I remember you had sharing some of my juniors where you would rock them all the way on their toes, rock them all the way on their heels, and then let them kind of rock back forth till they found center, and how good that is. And then I always go back, we've talked about this a bunch of times, but my old mentor used to say, the body's number one job is to not fall down. And people don't, and like, it sounds funny, but it's what you said. Like, if you're out of balance, the whole golf swing, your body's trying to figure out how to balance yourself rather than rotate or whatever and deliver a golf club.
100%. And I think that's where a lot of bad things happen. So getting balanced at setup is like the number one easiest thing you can do, because it doesn't take a good athlete to be balanced at setup. Like, anyone can do it, right? Like, there's no athleticism involved. And I think sometimes, I forget who said it, but it's like, do the simple things excellently, or do them the best you possibly can, right? A simple thing like getting balanced.
Jason Bale always talks about do do the simple things extraordinarily well, or to that extent. And I agree. I think, in fact, we have this group chat of a bunch of young teachers, and one of them threw out like, here's this guy, he's a pretty good player, really struggling with hooks, and it's like, and everybody's talking about all these things going in the golf swing, and I'm like, well, his shoulders are aimed way to the right, feet are aimed way to the left, and he's leaned in on his toes. Why don't we start with that before? Right?
Get them set up better, 100%. And that is, I think I would go there a lot with most not so good golfers. And to me, anything that's not going well in your golf swing, I think one of the best ways to try to fix it yourself, and you don't really need any technology, is to do like what you said, like go all the way to your toes, all the way to your heels. We call that the Goldilocks game, right? You go all the way in one direction and then all the way in the other direction, and then try to find the middle. Because I would say, most of the time with most people, the answer is somewhere in the middle. It's not going to be way to one side or the other. And so playing a Goldilocks game, and I do that often with somebody who's unbalanced at setup. I'll say, okay, this one, I want you to go way to your toes. Like you feel like you might just fall over, and hit me a couple shots. And then go way to your heels where you feel like you might fall over and hit me a couple shots. And then at the end of those, whatever, let's say 6 shots, they do 3 each way. I'm like, if you had to play golf in one of those 2 ways right now, which one would you choose? And most of the time they're like, oh, toes for sure, because I hosel rocketed 2 of them off my heels. Right? And so you're like, okay, so if you're going to make a mistake out on the golf course, right? If you get nervous, which way are you going to go towards? Okay, cool. Well, now we just learned something, because, and Jason Bale said a really cool thing I saw online the other day. Everybody comes to me, and because I just did a little thing up in Maine this past weekend, and at the start of the lesson with people, I would ask, like, what do you want? Like, why did you come here for this lesson? Like, what do you want for your golf swing? And a lot of people say, I want to be more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason said, there's no such thing as consistency. Like, the best players in the world are not consistent. Like Tiger Woods in 2000, which was some of the best golf that's ever been played, probably, was not consistent. How many times did he get on TV and said, yeah, I had like my B- game today, but I got it around there and shot 65 or whatever. So the best in the world are not consistent. So if you're a, 15 handicap, the chances of you being consistent is absolutely 0. You're never going to be consistent. Human beings are not consistent. But what he says, you have to be adaptable. And adaptable is, if you get on the range that day and you're not feeling good and you're hitting it kind of crappy and you hit the odd hosel rocket, you need to know how to adapt and say, oh, okay, cool, I know what that is. I got to go way to my toes today, and then I'll slap it around and at least not shank it, and maybe, get a decent score. So I feel like golfers that do enough Goldilocks drills and understand, when we go a little this way, that's what happened. When we go a little that way, that's what happened, and can adapt their game on every particular day, or even after a few bad shots, they're going to be the best players.
So we started with balance was number 1. I think you could put number 2 is the Goldilocks, where you overdo things. And I think you can do that with anything in the golf swing. You can
anything
with swinging 2 in to out, try to hit big sweeping hooks to start right, try to hit big cuts to start left. I think that's another thing that if you struggle, like, just go try to hit extremes using that Goldilocks principle, and then learn to find the middle, I think is another great thing that recreational golfers can do that don't have anything to do with changing their golf swing.
I agree. And I tell people the story. I was on the range at Dallas National a couple of years ago, I believe. They have forest plates there, so I was doing some work. And one of the top players in the world showed up. I won't say the person's name, but he got on the range and warmed up. And then I went over to watch him hit some drivers, and I was just standing to the side, and he hit 2 snap slices. And I was like, woo. And then he hit 2 snap hooks. And normally when a tour player hits a bad shot, you can tell by their face. But he hit it, watched it fly, and just teed up another one and hit it, watched it fly. And then he started piping them down the middle. So that was his way of calibrating himself for that day, right? Snap slice a couple to feel what that feels like, snap hook a couple to feel what that feels like, and then start hitting it straight down the middle. And so the next thing I would go to, using that Goldilocks principle, if you don't have access to force plates, is dialing in how much you have to get into your trail side on the backswing, because everybody's different there. I tell people and actually this is an interesting question for your audience, and even for you, is, so in 2015, when I first started working for Swing Catalyst, the average pressure shift into the trail side was 80% for all the tour data that we've had. And there was everything between, 150, but the average was 80. We've just redone all of our averages, and that average has now shifted to 75. So tour players on average are getting less into their trail side now than they were 10 years ago. Why?
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Brooks Running reminds us that we're all powered by something. Whether it's the me-time energy of a run after a day at the office, the electrifying energy of your first marathon, or the infectious energy of a group run with your friends. No matter what energy powers you, Brooks has gear specifically designed to unleash it. So lace up and let it out. Let's run there. Visit brooksrunning.com today to learn more.
I don't know the answer to that. That's why I'm trying to pull smart people to try to figure out.
I do think, this would be, this is a great discussion, but I think obviously, a lot of the work with all the TPI stuff and all the fitness stuff. And, I know, like, I'm thinking of the stuff that, like, I do with Colby in the gym and how you're trying to get people deep and loaded, but to be able to get more to the inside of the foot, not to the outside of the foot. And then and then you have a lot of people like we've taught a lot together, like, preference wise, you like a more centered. I like a little more centered and stuff. So that you would, I guess that would affect all of that factors into it.
Yeah. And then I think there's definitely teaching methodologies. I think, like you said, there are better athletes now out on tour than there used to be, I would say. Like, I was talking to my buddy Ben Shear, and he's like, there's nobody that's coming out on tour these days that doesn't have 180 ball speed. It's literally, it's impossible almost to get out there now. So, like, pretty much everybody is a really good athlete. And I find, sometimes getting more into your trail side can add a little more speed for most people, but the tour players now, it becomes more about finding it than creating that more speed. It's funny how we went away from, in the 2020, kind of around 2020, when Bryson won the US Open with all his extra speed, everybody was chasing speed for a while. But I think guys are starting to realize now, if I have 185 ball speed and I get it to 200, now my miss goes way further offline, and then it becomes an X versus just the rough or whatever. So so I think it's an interesting question, but anyways, that's not for our regular golfers, that's for for other people. But I think what I find is everybody's different in terms of the maximum pressure they get into their trail side. And I think, to me, if you do one where you, and I kind of talk about the differences in pivots, like if you think of like Bubba Watson, where his lead knee really collapses in and almost touches his trail knee. He's a guy, I think, that gets tons of pressure into the trail side. Yeah. And then I would say somebody like maybe Zach Johnson, or somebody who stays a lot more on top of it. And that would be, coming back to Mike Adams' old principles of like a trail side biased player, or he used to call it a, what do you call it? Right and left. I can't think of the front post. Yeah. Front post and rear post. And so now we've kind of adapted that principle into being more trail leg or lead leg biased. So if you kind of stay on top of and you stack more on top of it, that'd be more a lead leg biased player. If you kind of let that lead knee collapse in and get more into your trail side, that'd be a trail leg biased player. And, if you don't know what you are, hitting, like, do a Goldilocks game, hit 5 shots, getting way to the right as far as you can to the right, and hit 5 shots staying as far left as you can, and then decide, if I had to play golf in one of those two ways, which one would I pick? And then you kind of know, okay, for me, this one's probably a little better. I mean, and what you'll find a lot with the good players that I work with is they have their stock swing, but then they have their gas swing, right? If I'm on a wide open par 5, and if I miss it a little bit, it's okay, I can chip it back to the fairway. And so that, like, your gas swing might be getting more to the right, but your stock swing, maybe you'll kind of staying a little more left, so you can control low point and doing all those good things. So I think playing a Goldilocks game with how much pressure you need to get into your trail side is a really good thing to figure out for you. I know for me, getting a little more into my trail side is better for me to create speed. But if I want to hit a fade, I need to stay more on my lead side. And so playing some of those Goldilocks games allows you to figure out how to be adaptable with your pressure and figure out, what shot is optimal. Because if I get more on my trail side, I hit it. My normal shot's a little baby draw. If I get way into my trail side, I can snap hook it with the best of them. Right. And generally it goes miles. If I stay on my lead side, it goes about a club and a half shorter, but I can hit a fade, a really nice fade from there. So I take a club and a half more and I can fade it if I need to. So To me, understanding that and doing a Goldilocks game to figure out but for other people, it's different. Other people get way right and hit fades, and some people do. So figuring out the maximum pressure into your trail side is, I think, optimal for you. And sometimes it's very small. Like with good players, it's a very small, maybe 76 is optimal for you. But if you get to 78, you start to overdraw it. And if you get to 74 or 73, you'll start to fade it a little more. And sometimes you got to feel on the range that day, because everybody's different, right? You might sleep on your right hip wrong and whatever, right? You're kind of feeling not good that day. So that particular day, you got to stay more on your left side to make it happen. Because if you get too far right, you might start chunking it and hitting bad shots. So playing those Goldilocks games with the maximum amount of pressure that you get into your trail side on the backswing, I think is a good way to understand your own game. And it's a good way to warm up. Like if I wanted to do what that tour player did and hit like 3 snap hooks and 3 snap slices, the way I do it is I get way right, because that would snap hook it and I'd stay way left and I'd snap slice it. And then I know for that day, I'd find wherever that middle is to find my optimal shift into the trail side. If you don't have access to force plates, if you do, it's really easy. You hit, you look at it. Okay, cool. I can fix that. So.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That like, obviously not everybody has access to it, but I think if you go and you take a lesson and, like when we've done stuff in the Bay together at Old Palm or Frederica or down at Ocean Reef, and you understand your tendencies, like what's your tendency, right? Like, like you're like, if so, then when you go to the range, which way you tend to drift under pressure, I think would help a lot of golfers. And that's not telling you which way to do it, but hey, I know that my tendency is to not get enough pressure behind it. I'm not swinging good. So like you said, go to the range and exaggerate it where you
overdo it a ton.
You put more lateral in it than we would want you to do, but 100%. Overdo it and then you can figure it out.
100%. And I always tell people the driving range or the simulator or wherever you go to work on your game is not for you to hit it perfect.
Great.
Like people go there and they hit a couple bad shots and they get pissed off in the simulator on the range. I was like, great. Like the reason you go to the range or to the simulator is to learn, not to hit it perfect. And I always tell people, like when I have my like simulator with, my force plates, I'm like, this is not golf. And I'll tell you a funny story. One of our ambassadors went to Korea, I believe. And he said that to somebody hitting in a simulator. He's like, well, this is not golf. So when you go outside, and the guy's like, I never go outside. All my golf's on the simulator. So in Asia, I guess, like if you live in Seoul, it's really hard to find a golf course, right? Because you got to take the train way outside of the city. And it's really expensive to go golfing. So there's a lot of people in the world now that only play indoor simulator golf, which is kind of crazy. The AI world we're living in is kind of nuts. But for the regular golfer that just works on their game in the simulator on the range and then actually goes to the golf course, to me, like doing it wrong on purpose on the range is a great way to learn. I'm telling people now, my son, who's 2 now, can walk and he's running around. He's a crazy man. But when he was just learning how to walk, I remember when he first stood up, he would fall on his butt, right? Because he's crawling, he stands up, he'd fall on his butt. Then he got moving and he did a few face plants because he, overdid a little bit, went a little too fast. So he learned how to fall on his butt and then learned how to do a few face plants, and now he's good, right? He found the middle. And so that's how you learn. Like, it's not like he fell on his butt a couple times and got pissed off. He's like, fuck this is not for me. Right? You fail on purpose on the range because that helps you learn. And I think doing that on purpose, like that tour player did that I saw on the range, hitting snap slices on purpose, hitting snap hooks on purpose. Because I think what makes people quit this game is when the ball keeps doing the same thing over and over again and they have no idea why.
Right.
And so if that's the case, like if you keep hitting a snap slice on every hole and you have no idea why, this game gets real frustrating because you start aiming further and further left and then you start slicing it even more and more and more, and then you just can't fix it. So doing these Goldilocks games to understand when your bad shot happens, why it happens, makes you in a much better mood when you find it and hitting it again because you know how to fix it. So that's super important.
And going along with that too, I've always thought that one of the frustrating things for recreational golfers in particular is when they hit a good one, they can't tell the difference and they don't feel the difference between the good one.
Yeah, they don't know why.
And they go, what did I do there, right? Whereas if you understand your tendencies and you start, like you said, like you start overdoing it both ways, you start figuring out which side produces the better shots. Like you talked about with the fade, right? Like, and I just think that what you said was brilliant. Like the range isn't a place to hit it perfect. It's for learning cause and effect.
Totally. Yep. And I think that is the most important thing a golfer can do to be adaptable, to be able to adapt to the shots. Because you see somebody goes to the range with a 5-iron and hits 300 5-irons, and even though they hit them all perfect, when they go to the first tee the next day and it goes a little over here, then they freak out. They're like, oh my God, that wasn't the 500 perfect shots that I just hit on the range yesterday. And they freak out. Well, if they actually did that shot on purpose on the range and then went the other way and hit an on purpose shot the other way, when it goes a little this way on the golf course, you're like, oh, that's cool. I can fix that. I just need to go a little more that way. And it's less of a freak out, right? Because I think if you go to the range and you do this all the time, and then you go to the golf course and it goes over here, you're like, oh my God, what is that? And you just lose your mind. You're like, oh, that lesson didn't work, and I'm gonna go do something else. And yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's really important. And then the other thing I think that I've found a lot for creating speed, because everybody, although the top players in the game,
give us one last thing for speed.
The top players in the game, a lot of them aren't really looking for speed anymore, but all of us regular people, I mean, speed is very helpful, right? If you can hit it further, it's the game becomes a lot more fun. And I think one thing that I'm finding quite a bit is a lot of amateurs are very static before they take the club away. They stand there and they're super static, not moving, and then they take the club away and they swing. And like, think about any other athletic event. Like, watch a shortstop while the pitch is coming in. You think they're just standing there still? No, their feet are moving. They're like kind of wobbling around a little bit. They're kind of priming the system to be ready to move into action, right? And so somehow getting your, like, I call it kind of revving the engine, right? You need to rev the engine a little bit if you're going to go fast. And so, and what I've found is, because I there's kind of two ways to rev the engine. The first way that I learned from actually Kyle Berkshire, right, is like rocking back and forth, kind of that rocking and rolling thing. Remember when he used to pick up his foot and rock back and forth? That's really good for what I call like a frontal plane swinger. Somebody gets their hands really high and creates kind of more of a lateral move into it. Rocking and rolling is really good. But I actually took a tour player and tried to give them that, and it turned them into a 20 handicap. Like, they were hitting it awful afterwards. And then I was like, ooh, I got to find a different way to do it.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
So there's either, and I kind of think of golf swings as like a frontal plane swing. That's where the hands are really high. I think of like Jim Furyk kind of, versus like a transverse plane swing would be like Matt Kuchar, right? Your hands are really low. You're kind of more rotational. So kind of a rocking and rolling versus a rotational swing. So Kyle Berkshire is a great one. I would experiment with that. So that's where you kind of rock back and forth between your feet. And as soon as your right foot hits the ground, you take the club away and you hit it. I've seen that add 5-ish miles an hour or more to some people's golf swing. But some people, it takes them and turns them into like hitting terrible shots. So then the other kind of revving the engine pre-trigger, which is more of a rotational cue, is like what Matt Wolff would do, where he kind of turns and then turns away from it. So you kind of turn into your, like turning as if you're moving in the downswing. And so you kind of turn forward and then turn back and take the club away as you turn back. So that's a more rotational kind of cue. People who are familiar with a long drive game, I'd say Berkshire is more of a rocking and rolling trigger, and Martin Borgmeyer is more of a rotational trigger. He kind of turns and turns. And so it's interesting. I did a golf school at Congressional in DC earlier this spring, sorry. And we had a whole group of juniors, and I think there was probably 10 or 12 juniors, and I showed them both the triggers, and I said, experiment with both of these and figure out which one works best for you. And out of all 12 of them, I would say 6 or 7 of them used one and 6 or 7 of them used the other. And they all gained like 4 to 5 miles an hour club head speed just from adding a little trigger to their swing. And I think the trigger is something that I told them is not something you're going to use all the time, right? If you're on a really tight hole, you need your fairway finder. That's not the time for your big, kind of whatever you call these kind of revving the engine triggers. But it does help to add speed. And that's where, I mean, as I said earlier, I think most of the best players in the world that I've worked with have that little extra gear they can add when they need it. So if it's a wide open par 5 and you can bomb it down there and have 6 iron in, that's a pretty big advantage.
Yeah.
And if you miss it a little bit and you can punch it back to the fairway and have wedge in, that's totally fine. Where you wouldn't bring that up on the hole where there's out of bounds right and water left or whatever, that's when you hit your little peeler fairway finder. But you need to know where that gear is when you need it. So I think working on putting some energy into the system before the club moves away from the ball or revving the engine is something that is really important to adding speed, if that is your goal.
Doc, awesome stuff. Thanks so much. This was great. We got to do this again, and appreciate always you sitting in with me, but we got to get you down and do a retreat here again soon. Miss you.
Let's do it. Let's wait till it cools down a little bit down there. And then
Wait, you don't want to do it with 110 degrees? Come on now. I was going to see if you wanted to do August. All right.
I'm getting old now. That humidity, it wears on me these days.
No,
so.
we'll do one over the spring.
Awesome. Sounds good, Tony. Thank you,
buddy.
sir.
Thanks so much for sitting in.
All right.